Good evening, everyone. It is just about 5:45 in the evening on September 23rd, 2019. And as you know from the title of this video, we are continuing our comparison between the DT1990 from Beyerdynamic and the Sennheiser HD700. Today, we are talking about the treble. We've done the bass, we've done the mids, now it's the treble. And I have both headphones connected to an AB switch, which is by itself connected to the Mytek Brooklyn DAC Plus, a phenomenal, wonderful, amazing, candy-like, sugar-coated, MRI-style amplifier and DAC that provides rainbows and unicorns and leprechaun gold if you listen to it properly using the best headphone possible. And that's the only way to actually listen to it. I'm messing around. It's a good DAC. It's a good amplifier and DAC. But if you give this to John Darko, he's probably going to come up with some sort of ridiculous euphemism and analogy, as I just stated. That's his shtick. Anyway, before we get to the actual test, let's take a look at what the manufacturers claim about these headphones. And there is some problem, as there always is with these manufacturers. They're never able to actually give us the information that's required. Let's take a look at the HD700. There's nothing here on the HD700 webpage regarding the actual characteristics of this headphone. The only thing I can really get out of it is that it has the open back ear cup, and I'm quoting it, the open back ear cup design is not only revolutionary, but also to facilitate transparent sound. That sentence doesn't make sense. Okay, so to facilitate transparent sound. Saying that something is transparent is totally irrelevant unless you're looking at it through a window, right? Saying that a window is transparent makes sense. Saying that sound is transparent makes zero sense. Nor does it make sense to say that a headphone is transparent, unless you're talking about the physical characteristic, which is you can see right through it. Then that would be understandable. So Sennheiser provides zero meaningful information about the characteristics, the actual vocal characteristic, the sound character of this headphone. So when you go to the DT1990, Beyerdynamic says, power and precision are critical requirements when it comes to sound reproduction. The efficiency of our latest Tesla driver technology is characterized emphatically by high resolution and high output power, brilliant eyes, a richly detailed mid-range, and precise bass combined to ensure a sublime sound quality that is second to none. Oy vey. All right, so a lot more words being used by Beyerdynamic, but saying exactly the same amount of information as Sennheiser, which is zero, nothing. It tells you nothing. Nothing helpful whatsoever, right? And by the way, they couldn't help but just dig in a little bit and say, we're the best ever, and another Aston turn sort of thing. When they say that, it provides richly detailed mid-range and brilliant highs, they're talking about the Tesla driver itself, right? The efficiency of our latest Tesla driver. They're talking about the driver. They're not talking about the specific driver tuning in the 1990. That's my problem. I don't know if that's what they're talking about. So when they take the Tesla driver, they took it from the T1, they put it in the 1770, and then they put it in the 1990. The T1 sounds great. The first generation T1, I don't know, I never listened to it. Second generation T1, love it. 1770 sounds like you are scratching a chalkboard with your nails. And then you have the 1990, which sounds fine. Nothing exceptional about it, but it sounds fine. Sounds good. All three headphones have the same driver, but all three have a very different characteristic. So by Beyerdynamic putting this statement on their website, they're not telling me what they're talking about. Are they specifically talking about the 1990, or are they just talking in general about the efficiency of their driver? Once again, we're left to just wonder. That's why we are here, you and I, so that we can actually test these things. We're going to test them on 3 songs, okay? We're going to test the treble on 3 songs. Scherzo for X-Wings by John Williams, Flight from the City by Johan Johansson, and New Light by Kazuki. Let's get started. We are starting with the HD700, which is our A headphone. B is going to be the 1990, obviously. Let's start. The volume is at -21. Not peaky yet. We're going to increase to -50. the horns come in right now, and it sounds really energetic, very airy and open. Ooh, it gets spiky, but it's not quite ear-piercing. A lot of energy there. I'm going to increase the volume again to -10. This is louder than I would ever listen to this song for more than one playthrough. I mean, it's crystal clear. And that energy in the treble is phenomenal. Okay, so here's what happens. So when the horns go da 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 da, right, that part da, that gets really, really close to being overwhelmingly trebly, but it's just slightly by a hair underneath my personal threshold. But I tell you now that if you are treble averse, you cannot stand trebly sounds. This headphone on this song at that high a volume. So how high a volume? Let me put it this way. This is the song you're listening to. You crank it up to the volume where you would say, I cannot listen to this any longer. This is I can only listen to it for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, or however long the song is. That's the most I can listen to it. Only once. Put it to that volume, and then you get to this portion of the song where the horns go da 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 da, and then your ears will explode in pain. If you are treble averse. If you are not particularly sensitive to treble, if you are older and your ears simply, can't perform the way they used to, or you've been in a freak accident somehow and your ears are unfortunately damaged, then this will probably not bother you. But for the average person, I think that this is the threshold. Like, this is getting way too uncomfortable beyond this very hairline line, right? Hairline. Let's keep going. I am always blown away by the amount of air and separation with the HD700. It's separation for days. Okay, I'm going to bring the volume back down to -25. And at -25, you can still feel that there's energy there and that there's a lot of treble present. But because it just brought down the volume, it's more manageable, obviously, but that makes sense. But I've noticed that as I go from one set of decibels to the next, -25 to -10, as I'm moving across that wide gap, as I'm turning up the volume, it's not as if there's a sharp jolt up in the treble. So it's not as if I'm at -25 now and it sounds like, okay, there's a lot of energy, but it's not trebly. And as I'm cranking it up slowly to -10, that somewhere along the line at, say, -15, there's a huge spike and it just blows my eardrum. That does not occur. So it's a fairly linear representation. So once you go from -25 to -10, as you move the volume up, it just increases the volume very gently. And there's no harsh spike. Now, there is a spike in the treble that's present in the -25 as it is in the -10. But that it's just the difference in volume. Hopefully that makes sense. Because what I want to get across is that the sharpness doesn't just appear out of nowhere at a particular volume. The sharpness is there whether you like it or not. It's just how prevalent you want that sharpness to be, which is totally dependent on first of all, the song, and second of all, the volume. You can always listen to a very trebly song at a much, much lower volume and bear it, especially with headphones that are prone to introducing a lot of treble. Okay, so now let us switch to the 1990 real quick. Okay, we are on the 1990. Let's restart this song. Here we go. We are at -25. I'm going to increase the volume, -15. It's still pretty peaky at -15. And remember, this is 250 ohm, right? So 150 versus 250. 15 is probably around negative 12 on the no, I mean not negative 12, negative 18 or 19 on the Sennheiser. I'm going to increase the volume again to negative 10. It's that spike. Da 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 da. That spike still comes back. So here's the thing. The spike is probably about the same. Now I can go back and I can really quickly do an A and B and tell you if the spikiness is different, like da 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 da. That high portion, da. Is that represented differently? Is it less spiky on one than the other? I don't think so, my back and forth, but I'll give it a shot. Why not? Let's just try it. Let me find out exactly where that portion of the song comes in. Yeah, right there. So let's say between 1 minute and 1 minute and 10 seconds. So I currently have the 1990 on my head. I'm going to keep them on. The volume is at, what is it? Negative 10. I'm going to keep it negative 10. And let's play it. Then I'm going to stop, go back, switch to 700, play it again, and then I'll let you know. Here we go. Switching to the 700. Here we go. I'm going to bring down the volume to about negative 14. Yeah, I think the treble spike is practically the same with the two. When it goes da-da-da-da to around 1 minute and 8 seconds, 1 minute and 10 seconds. It's pretty much the same. The only tonal difference that I can find is that the 1990, because it's closed off, it's more warm sounding and there's a bit more bass response. So just that has a lot more to do with the slight difference in tonality of the treble than the actual treble being different. I think both spikes are fairly the same, in my opinion. Okay, so now let's go to Flight from the City by Johan Johansson. I currently have the 700 on my head. I'm going to keep them on my head, and let's go. And this volume is a little high. I'm going to bring it down to negative 22, 24. Very open and airy, natural decay to the piano. Meaning, as the piano keys are hit, they fade, and they fade, within a second or two. There's no lingering reverberation. There's no real meaty bass response either, as the pianist is hitting down on the keyboard. There's no thump thump, because the 700 are fairly light on the bass. I'm going to increase the volume to negative 15. I don't think there's any trebly nature to this song to begin with. However, what I will say is that there are portions when the piano plays at some of the higher frequency of the piano has a lot of energy just subdued. Meaning it doesn't get ear piercing, it doesn't get really super trebly. It's just a lot of impact. Meaning it just, the volume is it's like playing, it's like doing this. Dun 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 dun. See that whole part, dun, right? That's as if the pianist is hitting harder on that one key to make it resonate harder with more volume. And that's the way that it presents it. And that's probably what's happening in the song anyway. Okay, so let's stop and let's switch to the 1990. And Shay is here to figure out what we're doing because she is concerned that we are listening to music a little too loudly. That's all right. Good girl. Here we go. Once again, we are now on the 1990. more closed off, but that's nothing new at this point. I'm going to increase the volume to -15. You know, the immediate problem between, I won't say it's a problem, but the difference between the 1770 and 1990 is that the 1990 has a much more closed-off experience. And if you go back and forth, you will immediately know which one you prefer, which sound signature you prefer. If you have no idea whether you like open and airy or more closed off, you will know immediately once you put on either of these two headphones and go back and forth. No harshness, no peakiness. I would say that the treble energy on the 1990 for this song is more subdued than it is on the 700. Part of that is that there's a bit more muffled nature to the piano on the 1990 because of that bumped up bass compared to the 700. The piano frequency is not as clear and distinct. I'm going to increase the volume again, or at -10. And at higher volume, at -10, you start feeling the energy of the piano, but it's still pretty gentle. I would say that because the 700 has more air in the song naturally, because of the way that reproduces the music, that the treble response that the 700 provides for this song seems to have more energy, but that may not actually be true. It's just the way that it's being presented because of the two different natures of these headphones, open back versus closed. Slightly more bass on the 1990, slightly less bass, than neutral, less than neutral on the 700. Okay. So on this song, I would say that it's fairly comparable. I think that the 700 probably provides a more natural experience of the piano without any hesitation. I think that is my conclusion. But it also tends to provide or seemingly provide a bit more energy to the piano frequency. So if you are a little sensitive with piano, then the 700 may not be the right headphone for you if you listen to a lot of piano-centric music. Whereas the 1990, the piano frequency has energy, but it's just not quite the same amount. Indeed, because it's more closed off, less airy sounding, you get a more muffled experience with the piano. Part of the reason of that muffledness is because the bass is slightly more bumped up than compared to the 700. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. And it all really depends on which one you prefer. All right, let's go to our last song. Let's go to New Light by Kazuki. And the reason I really like New Light is because it has layers and layers and layers of detail. So the details that we're looking for are the wind rustling through the grass, the tall grass. You also have the voices of kids playing all the way in the background. They're all the way in the back. You have a piano and a guitar. There's this low synth type sound. There's a low rumble that's happening all the way at the very, very bottom. You have the sound of somebody walking on grass or dead grass or dead leaves, and you can hear the crunch, crunch, crunch. All of that is just mixed in beautifully. And if you have a pair of headphones that can provide all that detail without obfuscating any of it, without confusing any of it, without hiding any of it, then that's a fantastic headphone. So let's go with the 700. That's what I have on my head currently. And let's start. Going to increase the volume to -20. I can absolutely clearly hear the person walking on the grass. I can hear the synth sound. I can hear the piano very clearly, hard separation. I can hear the kids in the background, muted, but absolutely clear. I can hear the wind rustling through the grass, the tall grass. Excellent separation of everything. It just sounds like I'm surrounded, like my head is surrounded by the music all over. Some headphones provide music, directly into your ear canal. There are other headphones that seem to just cover your entire ear all the way around your head. It makes it feel as if there's a sound right above you, there's a sound right below you, there's a sound just to the right of you, and a little further back, and you're just swimming in it. That's the way that the HD700 seems to present the music, just all around you, this type of music. When the acoustic guitar comes in, there's no lingering reverberation, there's no interference. Now that we have a higher pitched synth sound that's coming in, no peakiness, no harshness at all. I'm going to increase the volume to -10. No harshness, no peakiness. Treble is very well controlled. I'm going to bring the volume back down to -25. Okay. So this song, with these headphones, makes it feel as if I am... Oops, I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone. It makes me feel as if I am just, just swimming in music. It's such a cool, wonderful experience. All right, now I have the 1990 on my head. Switch to the 1990. We're at -25 decibels. And let's restart. Here we go. I can hear the wind rustling. I'm going to increase the volume to -15. I can clearly hear the person walking on the grass. The crunching of the grass seems to be slightly more pronounced on the 1990. Kids sound a bit more muffled on the 1990 than the 700. The wind is also a bit more present than on the 700, but just a hair. It sounds a bit more amplified. The piano frequency, I would say, it has a slightly longer reverberation than on the 700. But it's more closed off, and it doesn't sound like I'm swimming in the music. It just sounds like the music is being directed into my ears, left and right. So there's no verticality, there's no real depth to it. I can't say that the kids are all the way behind me. It just sounds more muted in the ear cups. I'm going to increase the volume to -10. And at -10, that lower bass is starting to really interfere really badly. It sounds like when you put your face up against a working fan and you talk into it, you get that type of sound. That's how it sounds, a higher volume on this song. I didn't get that with the HD700. No peakiness, no harshness, no real treble problems at all. No treble problems, in fact. Okay, so for this song, I would say that the treble response is practically the same. I mean, there's no treble peakiness mixed into the song at all, and neither of these headphones emphasizes that. Okay, the difference is that the 700 has people call it a holographic sound signature, right? If you go and you look at reviews for the 700, the 800, the 800S, they talk holographic, such 3D sound. Okay, so here's what they mean, I think. I'm trying to decipher crazy people. What I think they're talking about is to say it feels like that the sound is totally around your head, meaning specifically, factually, that there are pieces of the music that is played that appears to be on different sides of your ear, meaning when you put on a pair of headphones, stereo, left and right, correct? You hear the sound. The vast majority of headphones just put sound into your ear canal, directly in. You just hear sound. You don't hear position of instruments. You don't hear position of vocalists, things of that nature. But with really excellent headphones, you can tell. You can tell when in this song, on the 700, you can tell that the kids are in the back. It makes you feel as if they're all the way in the back somewhere, behind you. In the 1990, they just sound muted. There's no positional awareness with the 1990. When the person is walking on the grass, the 1990 tends to have a slightly bumped up presence on the grass crunching. It's louder, in other words. But the 700 is more crisp. It just sounds like a real crunch, like crunch, crunch, crunch. Whereas in the 1990, it's a bit more muffled. It goes crunch, crush, crush, right? There's a slight difference in tonality. Then, when you talk about the synth sound that comes, the 1990 presents that synth sound as if it's just going left and right into your ear canal, directly in. Whereas with the 700, it makes you feel as if it's all around your ear. All around, that it's just surrounding. It's coming from all directions. Up, down, left, right, back and forward, everywhere. Now put that in context. You have that sound signature. The synth is all over you. Every direction. And then on top of that, you have the kids all the way in the background. And you have that crunch, crisp, crunching sound of the person walking through the grass. How does that make you feel, you think? Add on top of that, when the acoustic guitar starts playing, it's playing louder on the right ear cup than it is on the left ear cup. What does that suggest? That the person who's playing the guitar is on the right-hand side instead of the left-hand side. Right? That frequency is hitting your right ear with more energy than it is your left ear. You only hear the whatever leftover energy you have after it passes through your head, and the other side of your ear hears it. You're creating stereo sound that way. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? Compare that to the 1990, who's all it does, it just presents it in stereo format, left and right. That's it. There is no 3D, quote unquote, holographic effect. Doesn't sound like you're swimming in it. It just sounds like you're there. You're listening to the music. You're listening to two bookshelf speakers on left and right, and it just, boom, right into your ear. That's what it sounds like. Whereas with the 700, it sounds almost like you're just sitting in a Dolby Digital theater, or your house, right? You have a house. You have small speakers, satellite speakers all over your ceiling. You have a subwoofer behind you. You've got, it's a 7.1 surround sound system. And you can find sounds left and right, top and bottom. Okay? That is what the 700 sounds like, by analogy. Okay, so let's talk about conclusions. Which one is the most bestest? Right? Which one is the most bestest headphone ever? I can't tell you that. I don't know which one is the bestest headphone ever. Unfortunately, the problem with both of these companies is that they don't provide you with any information that's helpful about the sound signature. Beyerdynamic claims it's the best, right? The second to none is what they say, which is a load of crock. That's not true whatsoever. I'm not quite sure if Sennheiser makes the same type of claim. I may have missed it on their website. I don't know if that's the type of statement that they make. But it's clear to me that out of the two, the matchup here, the 700, in my opinion, is a more favored headphone. And the reason is because it provides all that air. And it just sounds more open. And it has that surround sound experience. And on top of that, the energy is about the same. The treble response seems to be exactly the same to me, with a slight difference in the character of the way the sound is presented. Whereas Shay is just being real loud now. Whereas in the 1990, it's a more closed off, slightly more muffled, slightly more bumped up bass. You have that compared to the 700, which is more open sounding and more airy, better separation, more hard-line separation amongst all the instruments. And I think, what is wrong with you? Can you talk, please? You're really disturbing everybody. So in my opinion, I think the 700 is the headphone of choice between these two. If you want detail, if you want accuracy, if you want fast transients, if you want hyper accurate positioning, or as close as you can get for this price range, the 700, hands down. Look, I cannot recommend the 1990 for any of that type of listening. If you want to listen to a slightly more warm presentation, and on top of that, still have some of that treble energy, some of that detail, then the 1990 is a good headphone to have. It's more robust, I think. It probably looks better to a lot of people. But the price difference, I can't just justify it. To buy the 1990 brand new over the 700 brand new. Now, the 700 brand new is about $750, and the 1990 is about $600. But the 700, because people dislike the sound signature so much, for who knows why, they have their own personal opinion about it. You can find the 700 for about $350 to $400. Sometimes a little bit over $400. But regardless, you'll find it for less than you will the 1990 for most of the time. And so when you're faced with that, the question is, number one, what's your budget? And the budget should absolutely control. And number two, what is your sound preference? So if your budget is anything up to $600, then either of these two will work. If your budget is no more than $400, then look, I think you'll be happier overall with the 700 if that's the sound signature you prefer. Now, let me emphasize something to you. I've never said this before. I'm going to say it now. 3D effect headphones are pieces of crap. Never, ever, ever buy a headphone that mimics Dolby Digital Surround sort of nonsense. Those things are awful. Audeze came out with one of these sort of positional awareness headphones for gaming recently. And I tried it. A friend of mine had them, and I put them on. I said, I cannot ever endorse this type of headphone. It is such fakery, digital fakery, and it's immediately apparent that it is not true effect, right? It's just making things up. The 700, when you listen to it with a song that has a lot of detail and in fact is mixed to have positional detail, the 700 is just going to bring it out. That is a true hallmark of a headphone that has, quote, 3D effect, quote, surround sound effect. That's the way you should go instead of spending money $400 or $500 for something like from Audeze, which is totally ridiculous. And the 1990 simply doesn't do that. Will never, ever do that. That is not the type of headphone the 1990 is. I hope that this has been helpful for anybody who's been considering the 1990 versus the 700. People knock the 1990, they knock the 700. Both headphones have strengths and weaknesses. It all depends on what you are specifically looking for. However, if you thought that the 1990 was the best and 700 could never compete, maybe this will give you another opinion. If you thought that the 700 was amazing and the 1990 is crap, then maybe, again, this will give you another opinion. I hope that your selection process goes smoothly. I hope that if you choose to buy one of these, based upon this review session that we've done here, not just the treble, but the mids and the bass, then please let me know. I'm very curious if any of my content is helpful. Speaking of which, if you find my content helpful, if you think that any of my content is of any value to you, then I would ask that you please consider donating to me once a month on Patreon. I currently have 6 very giving, generous patrons who give me a little bit of their hard-earned money once a month, every month. For a couple of dollars a month, you can help keep this channel going. I buy my own equipment. I test it thoroughly. I'm not beholden to any company. I'm not beholden to any reviewer. I do my own thing, and I make sure it's thorough and as precise as I can make it. And I do it because, well, I think you deserve a review that actually makes sense. You deserve a review that is thorough and painstaking for me, not for you, hopefully. If you are a viewer but haven't subscribed yet, then hey, maybe you'll choose to subscribe to my channel. I love getting notifications every day that I have one more subscriber. Today, we surpassed 450. We surpassed 450, and I really am eager to get to the 500 mark and then the 550 after that. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want me to review a product that's on my product list, then please look at the review request form in the description below, follow the instructions, and then I will get to your review request as soon as I possibly can. I hope all of you have a wonderful, amazing, beautiful end of your Monday. You enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.